Armors not only defined survival in battle but also witnessed the cultural and technological development of entire civilizations. From primitive warriors protecting themselves with animal skins to elite soldiers equipped with cutting-edge technology, armor has been essential to the course of history. How did these protective suits transform the fate of entire empires? Today, we will unravel the fascinating evolution of armor, from its humble beginnings to the innovative bulletproof vests of today. Are you ready to travel through time and discover how armor revolutionized battles and changed the course of history? Don't go away, the best is yet to come. Keep watching to discover how armor has changed the way we fight battles. Armors were not only tools of combat, but powerful symbols of status, honor, and power. In ancient civilizations, every piece of weaponry had a much deeper meaning beyond its practical function. In Rome, generals and emperors wore more elaborate armor than common soldiers. These suits not only protected them on the battlefield but also represented the authority and discipline of the empire. Walking among their troops, their armor spoke of their power, a visual sign of the strength that commanded an entire army. Similarly, the samurais of Japan used their armor as an extension of their code of honor, Bushido. Every piece, from the helmet to the protected back, represented their commitment to honor and loyalty, core values of their culture. Protection was not just about surviving the battle but about staying true to an ideal, being a warrior in body and soul. These armors did not just protect, they also inspired respect and fear. Through the centuries, the relationship between warriors and their armor shows us how physical power is tied to cultural and personal identity. But beyond protection, how did this symbolism influence the course of wars and civilizations? The first armors were nothing like what we know today. In the Stone Age, early humans, faced with the wild nature and threats from predators, discovered that protection was essential for survival. But instead of metals, the first armors were made from the most accessible materials, animal skins. These primitive pieces of protection, though rudimentary, served as a crucial barrier against the teeth and claws of predators stalking the hunters. In their simplicity, these armors marked the first step toward the concept of personal defense, allowing early humans to face something more than just their bare bodies against the forces of nature. As the centuries passed and weapons evolved, the need for protection became even more urgent. The development of metal weapons, like daggers, axes, and spears, brought about a new challenge: animal skin was no longer enough. Thus, humanity began experimenting with new materials that could withstand the impact of these lethal weapons, leading to the creation of more sophisticated armors. This need for more advanced protection was the first step toward a revolution in warfare, where every improvement in armor became a response to the most powerful weapons emerging. The transition from animal skins to stronger materials like bronze and iron not only represented an evolution in technology but also reflected the changing way societies began to structure themselves, think about defense, and organize to face increasingly greater threats. As history advanced, civilizations began to perfect the techniques of armor making, and no one did it more impressively than the Romans. From the early days of the Roman Republic, Roman soldiers knew that a well-designed armor could make the difference between life and death on the battlefield. The Roman helmet, for example, was an engineering marvel. Made of forged iron, with a visor covering the face, padding to protect the cheeks, and an extension at the back of the neck to prevent blows to the most vulnerable area. Each part of this helmet had a precise function: the visor protected from blows from above, and the extension at the back of the neck protected from attacks aimed at the back of the neck. Roman helmets, though robust, allowed soldiers to move with agility, maintaining protection without sacrificing the mobility essential for combat maneuvers. But it wasn't just the helmets that were key to Roman protection. The lamellar armors, which covered the soldier's torso, were an example of the Roman skill to adapt and improve armors from other cultures. The legionaries also used large shields, known as scutum, made of wood and leather, with a metal edge for greater durability. This shield not only protected but also acted as an offensive weapon, with which Roman soldiers pushed their enemies, destabilizing them and leaving them vulnerable to attacks. The mobility of Roman armor was also a key factor. Despite being heavy, the armors were designed not to hinder the soldiers' movements. This adaptability allowed the Romans to maintain their discipline and organization on the battlefield, traits that were essential for Rome's military success throughout the centuries. Over the centuries, armors continued to evolve, driven by advancements in technology and the development of new military tactics. What started with animal hides eventually gave way to materials like bronze and iron, but it wasn't until the Middle Ages that plate armor began to make a radical shift in personal protection. During the Renaissance, armor became more complex and detailed. While chainmail armor was still used, plate armor became the standard for heavy cavalry and noble warriors. These plate armors covered almost the entire body, providing formidable protection against the weapons of the time, such as swords and arrows. However, what made these armors even more effective was their ability to be molded and adjusted to the body, allowing for better mobility and greater resistance. As firearms began to appear, armor had to adapt once again. The rise in the use of cannons and muskets in the 16th century created a new need for protection. However, traditional plate armor was too heavy and impractical to withstand bullet impacts. That's when steel vests began to appear, a precursor to modern bulletproof vests, offering partial protection against firearms. Each change in armor throughout history was a direct response to advancements in weaponry. As weapons became more lethal, armors also became more sophisticated, in a continuous race to protect soldiers on the battlefield. In the Middle Ages, armor evolved in impressive ways, adapting to the new challenges of warfare. While knights in Europe wore heavy plate armor, samurais in Japan developed a completely different, yet equally effective, style of protection for the battlefield. Medieval armors were a mix of robustness and style. Knights in Europe wore full plate armor, covering the entire body with layers of metal. These armors were incredibly strong, but also very heavy, which could limit the warrior's mobility. However, the goal was clear: to offer maximum protection against the weapons of the time, such as swords, spears, and arrows. On the battlefield, knights were an impressive sight, covered head to toe in shining steel armor, which not only protected them but also gave them an aura of invincibility. On the other hand, in Japan, samurais, known for their skill in hand-to-hand combat and their code of honor, designed completely different armor. Samurai armors were light, flexible, and extremely functional. They were made of metal plates, leather, and silk, interwoven to create armor that was strong but allowed the warrior to move swiftly. A distinctive feature of samurai armor was the helmet, which not only provided protection but also featured a terrifying mask, known as menpo, representing a demon's face, designed to intimidate enemies. One of the most surprising features of samurai armor was its adaptability to archery. As expert archers, samurais needed armor that didn't hinder their movements while shooting. Therefore, their armor was designed in a way that didn't interfere with the use of the longbow, allowing them to shoot arrows with precision without losing agility. Each culture, with its different approaches and needs, perfected the design of its armor to be more effective in combat. From the solidity of medieval knights to the flexibility and symbolism of samurais, medieval and oriental armors are a testament to the diversity in strategy and war design. By the 20th century, the nature of warfare had drastically changed. Traditional armors, such as plate or chainmail, were no longer sufficient to cope with the new weapons and combat tactics. The Industrial Revolution and the advancement of firearms, as well as the appearance of armored vehicles, forced armor designers to think in a completely different way. During World War I, although cavalry still played an important role, the war became primarily trench warfare, and firearms, such as rifles and machine guns, changed the battlefield. It was in this context that the first attempts were made to create armor capable of withstanding modern gunfire. Steel vests, heavy and bulky, began to be used by soldiers to protect themselves from direct fire. Although they were not completely effective, they marked the beginning of a new era in personal protection. In World War II, bulletproof vests began to improve, and with them, the protection of soldiers. These new vests became lighter and more resistant, incorporating materials such as high-strength steel, allowing for greater mobility without sacrificing protection. This evolution was also crucial for the development of armored vehicles and tanks, which became essential elements of the conflict. Soldiers were no longer only fighting on the field but also relying on new protective technologies to face modern threats. This advancement in personal protection continued to evolve over time, and although traditional armor became obsolete, the concept of comprehensive protection remained essential. Bulletproof vests were improved, adapting to new threats such as mine explosions and high-caliber bullets. In the 21st century, armor continues to evolve alongside technological advances. While bulletproof vests have become an essential part of the equipment for armies worldwide, armor designers are taking personal protection to new levels of sophistication. One of the most exciting developments today is the exoskeletons, which are beginning to be used in the military field. These devices, which cover the entire body, not only protect the soldier from impacts and shrapnel but also enhance their strength and endurance, allowing them to carry more weight and move more easily. Exoskeletons are a clear example of how modern technology is enabling soldiers to overcome the physical limitations of the human body, offering much more advanced protection than any armor from the past. On the other hand, materials such as Kevlar, graphene, and carbon fibers are completely changing the way armor is designed. These ultra-resistant and ultralight materials allow for the creation of vests and helmets that offer protection similar to traditional armor but with a fraction of the weight. Additionally, nanotechnology is opening up new possibilities to create stronger and more flexible materials, which could further revolutionize military and personal protection. The future of armor seems to be full of innovation. Advances in materials science and engineering ensure that, although battles have changed, the need to protect soldiers will continue to be a priority. With ongoing technological progress, we may be on the brink of a new era where future armor will be lighter, more effective, and even more sophisticated than anything we've seen before. Armor has come a long way from its humble beginnings, from animal skins to the sophisticated protection technologies we see today. They have witnessed the transformations of war, adapting and evolving with every new challenge that arose on the battlefield. Throughout the centuries, armor has not only served to protect the body but also to symbolize power, honor, and the will to fight for something greater. Whether in the trenches of World War I, in the ancient Roman battles, or in the modern battlefields, armor has been an extension of the warrior's identity, a reflection of the struggle for survival and victory. But, looking to the future, one question remains: how will battles change in the coming centuries? Will we see exoskeletons fully integrated into the armor of tomorrow's soldiers? What new technologies could once again revolutionize personal protection? The history of armor is also the history of humanity, a story of innovation, adaptability, and a constant search for the best way to protect oneself in a world that has always been at war. And, as technology advances, we will surely see new forms of protection that we can't yet imagine. If you were surprised by the evolution of armor, subscribe for more fascinating stories about military history. And don't forget to share this video with your friends.